Hey Charlie, thanks for taking the time to come out today to look at our Durastar product. Wanted to take some time to go around this truck with you and just go over the features and benefits so you have an opportunity to see the kind of product we have and see how it can really impact your business. So let's start here. We'll start on this side of the truck and we're going to make our way around. You'll notice in the side of the truck we've got a number of different tank configurations available. This happens to be one with a 70-gallon aluminum tank. We have transitioned to all aluminum tanks on this model of truck. You'll see your diesel exhaust fluid tank here. We typically position that on this side of the truck, although we do have some other positions available. We'll talk more about frame positioning, add-on items like DEF tanks and exhaust as we make our way around the truck. Alright, so come on back with me. You'll see down here, let me just point out, this happens to be a fuel water separator that's frame mounted here. There's also other places we can mount a fuel water separator, as well as other places we can mount an air dryer. So if we need to get into different configurations, especially trying to keep a clean cab to axle for you, we can do that. So as you look at the side of the frame too, you'll find that we have a little hard to see here under the body, but you'll see that we have a huck bolted frame, so that really there's no movement. Once you huck bolt, that thing is on there. It actually compresses the metal of the nut side onto the bolt, so that anything that's attached to that frame won't move. In the Durastar product, just so you're aware, this is a single axle product. We also offer the Durastar product in a tandem axle. I know you were looking at this product today, so we'll focus on the single axle. This particular truck's equipped with the ISB engine and an automatic transmission. As we're here on the side of the frame rail, let's talk about the wiring too. You can't see it with this body on, but we've got a wiring loom that runs on the inside of the frame rail. So that wiring loom is actually encased in a protective plastic coating, and then we actually have brackets, if you will, fixtures that hold that tubing along the frame rail, so that wiring doesn't, move around. It doesn't chafe or cut against other things. While we're talking about the wiring, I should make sure that you know too that the wiring is color-coded and numbered, so it makes for really easy diagnostics. Although we've reduced the amount of wiring over the years to such a degree that there really should be very little actual wiring work that any of your technicians need to get into. What we'll do now is I'll move back up to the front of the cab so you can get a little perspective on some of the exterior features of our cab. On this particular truck, we've removed one of the mirrors for you so you can see that how the wiring is routed through this loop. Okay, so we call it a C loop. Very, very sturdy. This loop can actually hold 300 pounds, and it breaks away forward and back. So if it gets hit, you won't rip the mirror off the truck. The idea being, lower that maintenance expense for you. Let's talk about the cab too while we're right here. Okay, so one important feature is we can paint a cab any color you want it to be, and we can paint multiple tones. Got a paint schematic you want to do? Those are things we can actually do at the factory. But as far as our process on this truck, the cab itself is actually manufactured, and then that raw metal cab is taken into an acid bath to get rid of any impurities that are on there. I should back up and mention it's actually a steel cab, and as we walk through this, you'll relate to that in some of the other products you use, because I know you're using some bodies with some galvanization on them. Well, this cab is actually galvanized. So we got that acid bath that goes through, It's hot dip galvanized. They dip the entire cab in galvanization. That way it becomes galvanized everywhere. And this galvanization is done after the truck body, the body of the cab itself has been assembled. So there's no welding that happens after that galvanization's happened. So then you don't have opportunities for that galvanization to rust at weld points. After that process happens, that cab is then has an E-code primer on it. So the cab is charged one electrical charge, and the primer, the actual paint, the primer paint, is charged another electrical charge. So it's really interesting to watch when a cab is painted. They actually spray the spray out, and the spray just goes towards the cab and adheres to every single part of that cab. So it gets into spots that a normal painting process wouldn't. Then the cab is actually painted, and then the final step is we put on a clear coat. Important to note, because not every manufacturer puts on a clear coat. So why do we go through all these processes? We do it so that at the end of the day, this cab is going to last. Okay, the paint's going to last. And if you've ever looked at, like, you know, old trucks, or if you look at even like an old piece of construction equipment, you know, it's you know, it looks like it's chalky, that paint. You won't have any of that chalkiness with this kind of finish. So we'll keep walking up front here. I'll actually open up the hood. We'll spend a little more time on the front of the truck so you can get an idea of what we've got here. You'll notice on our hood here, it's actually a three-piece hood. So you can see the sectioning right here. You can see sectioning up here. This hood in particular, you got this piece, the center piece, and another fender piece. These headlight bucket panels are also separate. The idea being, if you take a fender bender on this truck, you don't have to, you know, replace an entire hood. You can actually just do a section of it. So greatly reducing the cost of a repair for you versus replacing an entire hood. So you're looking at things like this too on the hood. This is actually an optional item, hood-mounted mirror. We offer that on both sides, so that's an option that may be a consideration too. Wanted to take some time here just backing up a little bit with regard to packaging we talked about before. We got our battery box with it. This truck happens to be air brake. The air brakes are situated, the tanks are situated below. And I'll take some time too, because I know that this really will be the first truck where you're dealing with what I'll call the new emissions, okay? So you haven't experienced the DPF. In 2007, every manufacturer added a diesel particulate filter to the truck. So we have it just like every other manufacturer does. And you'll see that actually positioned down here. You've got a diesel particulate filter, and then of course you'll probably quickly notice that we've got another exhaust catalyst behind that looks like another muffler. This was actually a requirement that came about in 2010, where manufacturers started to add that also. And that catalyst, that tank we looked at on the other side, that diesel exhaust fluid tank, some people call it urea, that doses into that piece of the exhaust. What that does is that allows manufacturers to be able to send that exhaust into the DPF, and then any remaining impurities that the Environmental Protection Agency doesn't want going into the atmosphere are burned off in that catalyst. So that's just an important thing to note about that. And when we get into the interior cab features, we'll talk a little bit more about the emission systems. So we can probably make our way back up here. Why don't I give you an opportunity to take a look at the hood, and we'll tip the hood here, okay? So I want you to notice how easy it is to tip this hood, okay? You can just do it with one hand. Tip's very easy. It's got a spring assist system on the back of it. So you'll see that as we get into the cab, you'll notice that there's a great line of sight in this truck, especially when you sit behind the steering wheel. You'll be able to see this. But it's because of the slope angle of the hood that we have that allows you to be able to see all the way around this truck. Later on, we'll look at the diagrams on this. In some cases, we actually have a full car length of advantage over our competitors on line of sight. Okay? Why don't you come on around here, we'll take a look inside the engine compartment. This is the Cummins ISB engine we talked about. It's offered in a variety of horsepowers, and we offer it with a variety of transmissions. We can put a manual transmission behind this. We can put an automated manual, and we can put an automatic transmission. We'll spend a little more time on that when we sit down to go over the proposal in my office. I wanted to point out that our electronic control modules and our electrical system is, right here protected underneath the hood. What you won't see here is a fuse panel. I'll have to show you that inside the truck. And the reason we put the fuse panel inside the truck is because that gives you an opportunity to be able to work on fuses inside the truck. It's not exposed to the elements, and it ends up lowering your maintenance costs because those things don't get all that road grime and grit in them, and they last longer. I want you to take a look up here too. You'll see, you've got fluid checks here, you've got fluid fills here. We try to keep as much of that as possible on this side of the engine. So you can see you got more of it here for coolant. And then you'll see the routing again that I talked about. This is the same casing for wiring